Is everyone heading into a busy fall? Lots of conferences going on.
Very busy. Yeah. A lot of travel is picking up right now.
Isn't that exciting to have that back?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's good. So
I can't wait to be back at the conferences and in person. SaaS Connect was so great for getting to know everybody, but we definitely need more in-person contact now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I imagine a biz dev role too. You're chomping at the bit to get out and around too. That's got to be a much harder role to play when you're just 100% remote all the time.
Yeah,
I think so as well. It's such a funny thing because, like I said, I feel like I get to know people a little bit more now that the pandemic has shut down some of the Zoom roles that are going on. So I can, see your family and your kids are in the background and your pets and your dogs, but it doesn't replace that in-person contact of meeting someone.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed.
Still a few more folks joining us, but I do encourage everybody to turn on your camera and unmute yourself when you participate in the conversation, because you'll definitely be called upon. We want everyone to connect with each other. Okay, we've got about 12 people in here. I'll keep adding as more come in, but welcome to the SaaS Connect Roundtables. As you know, this is a discussion amongst peers. We have our two leaders. We've got Ryan over here from Blended Edge and Mike from Tray.io, and they're going to be leading the discussion today around the integration process. So we're going to have a ton of great conversation around that. It'll be at the hour, 5 minutes to, we'll kind of give a bit of a warning and wrap up any of the topics that we're discussing. But definitely as the conversation goes, feel free to jump in, ask your own questions, definitely participate as much as possible in the conversation, because we definitely want to hear from you guys. We also have a couple of events coming up at CSA. So we will be at Inbound, and that'll be for Agency Connect cocktails. We definitely encourage all of our CSA members to get in touch with us and sponsor, because it's a really great opportunity to get in front of a ton of agencies. We'll also be at SaaStr as well, and we do have a group buy on for that. So check out the website. If you are buying SaaStr tickets, we have a really good discount there. I probably didn't mention, I'm Lindsay Ward, and I'm the Managing Director of CSA. Probably seen me pop around Slack and at the events. And if you've been at SaaS Connect, we would have met there as well. But I'm going to hand over the conversation to our amazing hosts, and we will get going.
Great. Thank you so much, Lindsay. So it's great to be here today, everybody. Ryan and I are super excited and excited to chat about the topic today, streamline your API process. It's something I think that's near and dear to both of our hearts, given where we work and what we do. But we also want to make sure that we have a really good dialogue today and not have Ryan and I pitching you guys on our solutions, because that's not what the goal is here today. Obviously, iPaaS solutions are very much a part of the integration process in today's world, but there's a lot of ways to accomplish getting integrations done. There's, I think, even hybrid approaches to getting integrations done. So we wanted to make sure we had a really open dialogue today and here to just help everybody. So I think we live and breathe this every day. All of us do, being in the partner world, and just making sure that we have the ability to go and get our jobs done. That's really what we're trying to do. Get our jobs done, drive revenue for the company, drive partnerships, and integrations are a huge part of that. So I guess to kind of kick things off, Ryan, maybe I'll throw out kind of the first question. We can start talking through things. Full disclosure, we are going to be picking on you and asking you to engage as well. So I'll probably nudge my team a little bit that's on here to make sure that we have some good interaction taking place. But some of the questions that we talked about in our prep is really around, I think you can start from, how do you even begin the integration process inside of your company, all the way to how do you monetize it? How do you sell through those business cases? There's a lot of ways to approach it. So I think one of the areas that, maybe we start with is, how to even begin that integration process. Some of us are at small startups, some of us are at larger companies. We have integrations, we don't have integrations. So I'd love to kind of hear from the team, and even Ryan, jump in please too, but how do you even begin that journey? Is it presenting those business cases? Is it arguing with the product team, which we tend to probably do quite a bit, and the engineers? So I'd love to hear from you guys. Like, how did you start your journey? Are you in the middle of it now? Have you already finished it all and you can educate all of us on how you did it? Maybe Kevin, maybe Andrew, maybe Sanjay. Sanjay, I know you're in a startup or running your own startup. Oh, you're on mute, buddy.
We look at it from hi everyone, my name's Andrew. I'm the Director of Partnerships at Electric. We look at it from two facets. Retention, will this integration help us retain business? And two, what are the metrics around retention that we can learn from customer usage and the adoption of various applications that we are planning to integrate with. And two, for Electric, the reduction in, I suppose, cost of goods sold. What efficiencies will we learn, or will we gain from an integration based on the work that we're doing today without state integration? So they're the two facets that we look for, and we kind of prioritize a roadmap based on those. And we have got a roadmap of about 50 companies that we are soon to be integrating with Trade.io, actually. So there's a nice shout out for you, Mike and team. And so we're at the starting point of that, but excited to kind of be accelerating through it quickly.
That's great. It's nice to see you, and thanks for joining. When you mentioned the company name, I thought, okay, that's great. That's a new customer of ours. I want to hit on the first thing you mentioned is retention, which I love, because I think, I'm guilty of this as well. You end up focusing on integrations a lot to go and get new business, but there's such a huge advantage to leveraging integrations for retention and expansion. And that's something where I think all of us can really win, and retention's the name of the game. We can win as much as we want, but if those customers go out the back door, what's the point? So having the retention conversation is really important. How are you, if you don't mind me asking, now you want to have 50 integrations, which is great, obviously a large task. And that's one of the questions we have today too, I think, because some folks really have this huge amount of integrations they want to accomplish, but there's a lot of work still that has to get done. So how are you prioritizing internally, whether it's integrations for retention, net new, et cetera?
There's a couple of levers that we look at. As I said earlier, how many customers are using a specific product that we know would benefit from it? That's the number one thing. And we've got really clear data around usage that helps to make that decision pretty easy, Mike. The second area that we look at is what is the for us, it's ticket deflection. So how many tickets do we know based on historical data can we deflect via an integration? And so when we look at those two things, we get a sense of ROI. The second aspect is level of effort. There are integrations like Google and Microsoft, which are a lot harder to execute than something like Trello or, let's say, Zendesk. So we compare the ROI versus level of effort to get a better sense of how can we use that to inform the prioritization of our roadmap? What can we get started on now versus get started on in the future to achieve, the most results in the short and long term?
Okay. All right.
It strikes me that one of the key things you said there was that you have really good data about what other systems your customers are using. I'm not sure everybody has what they would call really good data about that. So how did you guys build that data set? Like, who in your organization played a role figuring that out? How do you catalog it? Just what does that look like for you guys?
Two ways. We are collecting that data right from the outset from our customers. So that's part of our application. We are collecting that data right from the outset of working with a new company. The second way that we do that is validating the data. We use Crossbeam. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that, to account map with proposed integration partners to get a better sense of how many shared customers and what does that overlap look like. So our data is not always accurate. So having that second tier of validation certainly has been helpful.
I'll give you a bit of our own experience. So we're a startup, so obviously very, very extremely resource constrained. And we don't have the luxury to have like a grand plan for integration. So we just take it as it comes, one at a time, unlike what Andrew said earlier. So that for us, the criteria are, first of all, is it a must-have or nice to have? So for example, so we have a subscription management solution using virtual credit cards for businesses. And we issue virtual credit cards. They use our cards to pay for all their subscriptions. And all the transaction data shows up in their Nacho account. So how do we get that data into our customers' accounting systems? So an integration with QuickBooks, for example, is a must-have for us. It's a key part of our product. Then we integrated with with Slack. I think Slack would be in the nice-to-have category. So the fact that you can do a lot of what you can do in Nacho, you can also do in Slack, for example, receiving notifications every time a transaction goes through, those kind of things we can do in Slack. So that is more, I would say, in a retention bucket. And then we realized that we can't really do all these integrations one at a time. So for example, we have a lot of customers in Europe. And as you know, in Europe, Xero is a lot more popular than QuickBooks. So then we said, okay, now we have to spend another few months integrating with Xero. So that's when we decided, okay, it's time to go to the platforms that offer integrations. So we haven't done Tray yet, but we started with Zapier. So we just launched Zapier integration this week. And then we leave it to our customers to use that to integrate with whatever else they want. And so that's where we are. And we would also want, based on our resources, given our resource constraints, to be part of as many integration platforms as possible, because it enhances our reach and enhances different ways in which our customers would use our product within their own workflows. So that's been our experience so far.
Okay, that's great. And I think I appreciate the crawl, walk, run as well. You have to do that. Like you can't, it's just too hard to try and go big out of the gate. And especially, Sanjay, with being in a startup, it's like you've got to just gradually kind of keep chipping away at it. And that makes perfect sense in my mind. We talk about that a lot, and I think Zapier is a great solution. And I'm sure Ryan's been in this scenario as well. You're in conversations with prospects and customers, and depending on their needs, our solutions might not be the right solution at the time. Maybe it is a Zapier or something else to get it accomplished. So I think that's really important in the business that we're in, is just to be real about where you're at in your journey and what makes most sense in that given moment. And then as your business builds and expands and scales, that's when different solutions, probably need to be considered to be brought in. I guess another question I have, just to kind of throw it out to everybody too, I'd love to understand if you're struggling with your actual APIs, so I mean, that's a big part of this. If you don't have, if you don't have an API, that's a challenge. B, if you have APIs that aren't in the best of shape to start really benefiting from integrations, I'd love to hear from the group how you're tackling that. I know I have multiple colleagues that I chat with that they're so frustrated because the APIs just aren't ready, and they'll be done in a quarter or 2 quarters, and it keeps getting stretched out. So anything that you guys are experiencing on your end you'd like to talk about?
Mike, I'll jump in here. Hello, everybody. I'm Kevin Hurd from PayTrace. I would say one of the struggles we tend to see, and I've experienced with our APIs, is just the underlying tech behind it, right? And the tech deck that comes behind it, and trying to make space on your roadmap compared to your competing priorities and where you're trying to go in the market to be able to make the time to update your APIs and the core technology behind it. I don't know if anybody's kind of experienced that, and it always feels like when you're working with an API and you're working with a tech and development community, you want to be in the forefront and with the latest technology as much as possible. But in order to do that, at times, you definitely need to make sure your tech stack is up to date, is what comes to mind. So right now at this time, our team's transitioning from elements of our code from ASP.NET, right, to now bringing it more up to date to something more Ruby based, more Python based. So that way we can continue to scale as we continue to work with to bring on more integrations to our API and more tech partners utilizing our API. So those are some of the things I've seen that we've run into.
Okay, that's great. Now, question for you on that, is that something the business came to a realization on as a group and realizing, yes, we have to do this? Or were you knocking on doors saying, look, we really need to update these APIs, we need to modernize our tech? Like, how did that process go?
Yeah, it was, I would say it was probably a combination of both, understand the organization understanding in order for us to scale as we all continue to learn going through this partnering space, right? We need to have technology and APIs that are going to allow the connections and make it easier for the programmers and developers to grab that technology and integrate with us, right? The simplicity there is going to really resonate with the audience and hopefully lead us to more partners, more integrations. And so as the business saw that and saw the good partners we were getting due to this and the scaling we were getting from these partnerships, it's like, well, we need to update this tech, while at the same time I'm pounding on the door, kicking the door going, I need it updated. I need this updated. This is where the most requests are happening and the bottlenecks are occurring. Let's update that. So I would say it was definitely it was both from what I saw in my experience.
How do you guys manage the transition from the old to new? I'm not sure how much you had implemented and how many partners you had out there, but if you're moving them to new APIs, that can be a little bit of a lift for basically moving parallel in terms of revenue. What's that look like for you?
Yeah, so I'll try to take a shot at that a little bit, Ryan. What's coming to mind for me is that we took kind of a segmented approach and prioritized, what were our most popular API requests, right? Obviously with being a payments company, sale is your most popular API request, right? To process transactions. And so in addition to that, identifying that, in addition to sale being the most popular request, we also prioritize exporting data out of our system as being the next higher request of individuals wanting to request transaction information or customer information out of our system, and thinking about, okay, we need to get those sections updated since we're going to get hit with the most requests, or think about things differently like webhooks. Instead of having our customers export that information, or our API consumers have to export that information to, hey, let's just push this to them when an event occurs, right? And trying to be, think more in that direction of how can we be more proactive instead of reactive with our technology.
That's great. Thanks for sharing, Kevin. And congrats on making the progress too. Anyone else dealing with APIs? Maybe Alan, it's like you just came off.
Yeah, I would have one story. My company does APIs, so I'm kind of ahead of the game here. But for my previous company, I was working at Connor Elevators, and we were having a big problem because it was a very big company, a lot of moving parts, and it was difficult to get stuff done, get APIs out the door, or you got timeframes of 12 months, stuff like this. So what we did with one customer, it was actually the Helsinki airport. We went to those guys and said, okay, what are your major pain points using our equipment? And we solved a couple of their pain points, not in real life, but we created just a contract for the API. And we mocked it. So we used Postman, for example, and we just mocked that API and said, okay, if you had this API, what would you do with it? And in turn, they kind of did a demo app for it. And then we used those to sort of push that up the organization. So instead of being the crazy, IT guys, we were the guys coming with a proposal for something that'd be really valuable for all of the customers, right? And then we got buy-in from the senior guys, and then the wheels started to turn. So that was kind of our approach in a very large organization.
A really good idea.
And it worked, right?
It's a really good idea, because then I guess by no means am I a technologist and could even begin to learn how to figure out how to write APIs. But using a tool like Postman, mocking it up and building that business case is a really, really good idea. And I'm absolutely going to steal it to share with other people, if you don't mind.
Absolutely fine. Go for it.
There's an abstract concept until you actually see what it can produce for you. So I think that's probably why that was such a powerful way to get it done, right? I can explain a data model to you all day, every day, but until you see the magical thing happen for you, it's tough.
Yeah, and I was speaking to a bank this morning in Australia, It's been a long day for me. And we were talking about, to the CIO about APIs as products. And that's also a very important part of that. What we're talking about is not talking about the technology and like the integration parts of the organization. You start to talk about business value and the API as a product. And that also it's the same thing, basically. Yeah,
it's a great point. Yeah, I mean, you categorize your API. Yeah, treat it like a product. It is so critical to the business. You should manage it like that, and really then learn how to expand that product, if you will, and make sure you're maximizing the value out of it too.
Yep.
And Alan, what company are you currently with, you said?
So I started a startup last year called APIable or API-able. And we create API developer portals that would sit on top of something like, Tray, for example, to allow developers to get to the APIs, get the secure API keys, etc.
Interesting. Okay. We should chat. I might have a prospect for you. So,
so I was kind of hoping.
Yeah, and someone that's in Europe, actually, that's struggling with that I know of. So,
okay, sure.
Yeah, very cool.
I'm curious while we're on APIs, to the extent that anybody knows, does anybody know, is everybody working on like a product strategy that's API first versus what you more commonly see people kind of bolt them on after the fact? Curious how that's changed experiences for anybody. I guess that's probably a no, huh?
I would say, Brian, we've been more in a pivot the last few years towards it.
Yeah.
It took, with being a bootstrap organization and building a payment stack and payment tech.
Yeah.
It took a while for the organization to understand what I meant by saying, hey, we should be API first, right? Especially with Stripe on the scene and as one of our main competitors. And it took a while to try to help the leadership team understand what I was talking about with. There was about 40% of our users who were using our virtual terminal or UI or cloud-based system that our users can log into and process and not use the UI. So when I mentioned API first, they were like, whoa, what are you talking about? API first, a lot of our users are here, they log in and we're talking about how to position our product and our system to be more of a product and be able to scale our technology by going in this direction. It's more of a strategy versus me just saying what we should be doing, being the partnerships guy, right? So I'd say it kind of an element of that is where we've been, and now the organization sees it. And even since now we're not bootstrapping and have been acquired, new technology teams are coming and saying, hey, this is what API first looks like. This is what it takes, and this is how you get there. So trying to get your organization into the now and the future by going API first, and what the flexibility it gives you to do by thinking about that, and how, as Mike identified, thinking of your API as a product really helps you set you up for success. I would say that's what came to mind for me there.
How long did that take, Kevin, for you to get the leadership on board and then start to make some of those changes?
I would say from the size of our company and being bootstrapped, it probably took about 2 years for them to finally grasp it, right? And constantly try to drive it home. I would say really thanks to this group, it really helped for me to get some material and information there. With also showing strategies from our competitors and what they're doing and how they're leveraging that to get there, to be able to help them see it, right? And be able to make it relatable to what's going on in our market, in our space, and with our competition, and how they're taking advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
It also really does take some champions within the organization, right? Your product team, right? Making sure that your product team understands that, and that there's good savvy product individuals who understand that. Really having that individual really helped me in my position to be able to have the product team come in, hey, this is what Kevin is saying, and trying to translate that to the organization. So finding those, sometimes champions or white knights in your organization to spread the message, right? And help communicate and educate about what you're referring to as far as API first.
Did you find that?
I would say even also being able to share that beyond the leadership team to the rest of the organization as well, so they can see the value of that and how it can, help your organization and even help them in their role and our customers and therefore our clients. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm kind of thinking about when thinking about that journey.
Did you find those champions? on your product team, were they product people, like product managers, or were they actually, did you find engineers who really embodied that philosophy and wanted to run with it on
I would
behalf
say
of
it was, I would say it was both. So, starting with the engineers, our developers that we have that actually build our tech, right? And being able to have conversations with them and then bringing that over to product and working with product and helping them understand that and helping them see it and giving them information regarding that and how it could benefit us. And then as they started to build knowledge, then it started to build a group and a team and a community, right? To be able to, spread that message, educate and spread it down to the different teams and also manage it up to the leadership team level, I would say.
That's awesome. I think there's a massive opportunity and probably most companies to buddy up with your engineer counterparts to, it's almost a cliche in these partner organizations like this now to say, be friends with your engineers, but they will use very, very different words, but they're actually articulating things that are right along the lines of what you guys are trying to accomplish as partner people, and figuring out how to bridge that language gap can be really, really powerful. API first design is a great example. There's obviously benefits to that for the partner organization and the ecosystem strategy, but in my opinion, the right kind of developers for building a SaaS product also have that philosophy just like embedded in them as well. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Talk to your devs if you get the chance. Definitely talk to your devs. Build a good relationship with your devs. Brainstorm with your devs. Has been some of the greatest, work and development and relationship building I have done in this organization while working for this SaaS organization. So.
We literally solved a lot of problems at a previous org by just putting our sales and partnership people like intermixed with our dev team, instead of them being on opposite sides of the office where they're off in their own rooms doing their own thing. Devs are a little standoffish, to be a little stereotypical to start with, but they are generally really excited to share what they're working on with people throughout the organization who want to understand it. And likewise, developers, they're inside their bubble inside the office. They don't get to go out and talk to partners and talk to customers nearly as much. And they love to understand how what they're doing connects to that.
And in addition to that, Ryan, as you just identified, our devs want to know, if the value is being delivered by what they're building. They also want to know what problems are we facing, right? Especially on the business development side and and the partner side, what problems are we facing? And they like to talk through that. And then what I've been able to do is try to slide the product owners and product managers into the room to be able to hear that conversation, right? So that way everybody's thinking and everything's kind of flowing in those conversations or whiteboards.
That's awesome.
So don't hesitate to have a beer with your devs and your product teams. Right, it goes a long way.
One tip I'll add, this is something that we do currently at Trey, just from an internal partnerships perspective. Engineers and devs need support with a lot of these other third parties as well. And it gets into business conversations and someone's like, now we need a sandbox and they're trying to charge me for it. So like all of the annoying business side of those partnerships, especially with the large providers, like not to call them out, but like the ADPs of the world and the NetSuites, it's like trying to get a hold of the IRS to talk to somebody. So we've taken it upon ourselves to try and help them with that. And we get so many extra credit points and street cred for that because we just deal with it. And it's a blocker for them and they shouldn't have to deal with all that garbage. So it's like, let us know, we'll handle it. We'll talk to the right folks and do our best to unblock things for you. So you can just keep doing your development work and not have to worry about all those other things.
Mike, that's an interesting question to kind of flip around the other way. So given that, basically everybody in the call here has a product or is helping to build a product that is potentially one that somebody wants to build an integration to someday. Are you guys having any successes, any challenges in creating that developer experience that overlays the API, being able to provide sandboxes, being able to provide API keys, being able to enable somebody else to build that integration to you beyond just giving them an API or a point and click, turn on kind of integration? Has anybody got that far down the road with it to have to think about those questions yet?
Doesn't seem like it.
Does anybody have other parties building integrations to them yet that like you guys didn't reach out specifically and say, hey, will you do this? Will you build this? Like reaching out to Trey and say, can you build your Trey connector to us, or a large customer that might build an integration to you, something like that. I think that's probably where that conversation comes up a little bit more.
I'd say just one thing that on that kind of vein is when you have like a smaller company and a larger company, it's very clear like which company is going to consume the APIs of the other one, right? So the small company needs to consume the big company's APIs, right? If it wants to do any business with them. But I've had this situation where I was working at Swisscom and we were trying to work with like AppDirect. In the beginning, AppDirect were using our APIs because AppDirect were quite small at the time, but then they grew and they got some funding and then they refused to, call any more of our APIs. I had like this standoff situation between two, relatively big companies that said, okay, an argument about, you call our APIs, right? No, you call our APIs. Have you ever had that kind of situation before? And like, how do you resolve that one?
Hey folks, Ben Brody with StackAdapt. Alan, that's a phenomenal question. In my role, which is a little bit, I think, different than maybe some of the folks on the call, because we're more like outbound partnerships. So we want individuals, we're approaching companies to actually insert part of our technology into their technology stack. We have that situation come up all the time. Who's going to build? And it's something that I've actually been wrestling with, like, how do you kind of offset some of the technical debt or the personnel debt that you incur if you're the actual builder? So what are the things that we can do to kind of sweeten the pot? Because nobody wants to build. Like we're at a stage in our company where we have massive amount of resources tied up to just developing the platform and continuously like increasing the size and the scope. So I've been brainstorming ways to figure out, how do we sweeten the pot for our potential partner targets to go out and build on our API and continuously updating what they're doing there? And some of those have to do with monetary benefits. So potential revenue kickbacks or helping them go out to market with some of our collateral or additional sales enablement. Because one of the things I think we forget a lot about is just because you make the integration, obviously it's not going to grow. And just because if you talk to a sales team and say, hey, we got this really cool integration, salespeople are pretty narrow-minded. I know because that's my background, that's where I come from. And we like easy street. And so when you expand the horizon of what I have to sell and all the integrations and all of the complicated technical aspects of it, it hurts our brains as salespeople. So like, how do we go out and help simplify their sale as much as possible? So these are things that I haven't really fully baked yet, but it's a good question, and one I thought I'd just say I'm thinking about every single day.
One thing that I learned at FreshBooks when I ran the partnerships team there, and we were lucky to glom onto the strategy, was just on this vein. We only built 10% of the integrations, of the 80 that we ended up having. This is before cloud connectors. Really, it's about that. You have to basically market yourself as a partnership channel to potential integrations. So we used to advertise not only the integrations to our customers, but that we were advertising to our customers, proving that we're a source of leads and revenue growth for the targets. And then we became the upstream partner because we were larger than most companies. And so people would want to integrate with us because it's a way to get to market. And we were very good at marketing the partners. I may have picked up a trade association along the way because I was so good at marketing my partners. I don't know how that happened. That's how this whole thing happened. But so we were very good at that. And then I didn't have to build any more integrations after that. I just was very good at marketing our partners. But I will say also, like on the AppDirect case and other things like that. I mean, I know this now because this is the world I live in at AppFind. It's like things you have to listen carefully because sometimes the business people want to do something, but the rest of the company is objecting internally because they just don't like the integration. So either you haven't proven the business case or they understand the business case and they may understand it better than the partnership person. like for instance, doing a billing integration that pulls in the whole company into the partnership deal, which they're going to resist because it's very expensive to carry. So, it's an enterprise sale at that level. So if you're asking for an organizational change in order to do the partnership integration, you have to show a lot of customer value. This is where crawl, walk, run really matters. You need to build your business case. And on the final part of that, I would say I was very good at the end, where I learned that one of the most important ways to build a business case is to focus on the vision for the customer. So the customer doesn't win. I used to say that it doesn't matter what we do for each other. We're going to market for the customer. And in the deck that I would always create, not only for the partner, but so they can share it internally, I would map out why, who the customer is, what they're saying, because we used to have better we had really good customer research. So we get all the quotes, we'd get the feedback, we get screen casts, we lay out decks showing flows and use cases and show where the real impact was, and actually paint the vision of what the products are together as something better, even from the point of view of the company we're integrating with, or they're integrating with us, to show that their company will be better off with the integration. And then it becomes a lot easier for engineers internally and product to get behind it, because a lot of them don't even care about the revenue. They just care about building the greatest product, serving customers better. So if you show that actual human lives are impacted in a positive way, it's a lot easier to get through those objectives.
Sunir, that's such a good point. That's probably one of the biggest gaps I see in customers who want to build out integrations is skipping from, we want an integration to X, to here you go, developer, here's the API doc, go ahead and build it, and not having that conversation in the middle there where you're defining use cases and articulating this like experience that your customer can have across both products to make their lives better, and describing why those two products together do better together than separately. It's challenging because you're effectively defining user stories that branch into somebody else's product, but it's so important.
Yeah, it helps for companies who do all hands support. I always recommend that. We did that at FreshBooks and Olark. So integration stories were easy because we could just look at the support tickets. Everyone had them. Everyone could see them. But if you don't have that, you have to be very good at pulling the research, customer data out, and then telling a story with it first. You got to set the story in the customer's mind and everyone else's mind, and then you can talk about commercials. Like no one cares about money. They care about their own customers first, right? Then money. That's how it works.
So I think one of the questions I wanted to try and dive into a little bit too is talking about how your partnership is with the sales organization. I think one of the things that tends to come up too is, I'll chat with a lot of folks out there that don't have integrations, and it's impacting their net new revenue also, and churn. We talked about that a little bit ago, but there's definitely losing deals because you don't have an integration and your competition might. So I'd love to hear from the team in the group that's on here, like how have you partnered with sales, and have you leveraged that to help build business cases internally to get the resources and or the budget you need to build more integrations?
One of the things that we're doing, again, our model might be a little bit different because I run a team of actual like business development, like outbound sellers, but we still have the component of our product being the API product for the company being used for current legacy clients, or like our direct sales team. So both departments, the department I run and the department for direct sales, run by completely different people, right? Me on one side, and then we have VPs on the other. What I'm doing in terms of structuring to help with that kind of that co-selling internally and that evangelization of what we're doing over there and that massive sales team is partnering up our sellers with those sellers. And you can just use that from a partner standpoint. You have partners who have direct sales buddies. This probably isn't like a revolutionary idea, but it becomes now that you're bringing a team together. So you're creating pods rather than having two separate departments that sometimes talk to each other. And so now you have a direct salesperson, you have an account management support team, and then you have a strategic partnerships individual alongside that pod. They're involved in 80% of the conversations that they have. They're involved in all of their status meetings, and they're there as kind of that strategic thought leadership or support person for selling through additional integrations, or just additional upsells that we all handle on the partner side.
That's great, Ben. No, it's I think probably the ideal state is to have that cross-departmental collaboration already happening. And I think, I think a lot of companies can learn from that, because typically it's pretty siloed, especially CS and sales. In my experience, it's very, very siloed because they tend to not really talk to each other. But I think, if you see the repetitive nature of, we're losing again because of this, we don't have this, we don't have this. I have multiple ISV partners that we work with that just simply don't have really, really critical integrations, and it just kills them. It's like, part of me wants to say, like, just go and build it. Like, why aren't you building it? Or work with us or work with somebody, but, plug the hole essentially. But I think once you could put those real numbers behind it, it really adds up pretty quick. And I think that is always a good way to try and turn the battleship, if you will, internally, to really bring to light, there's real revenue on the table here that we're missing out on because of this, because of that. Or if it's an expansion of an integration you have, that you don't have certain endpoints built out that you need built out to support your customers as well.
One of the challenges that we have had historically is actually getting the numbers. The sales team will jump up and down saying, we need this, we need this, we need this. It's like, well, anecdotes can only go so far. We need actual data. And so we've done a lot of foundational work from a RevOps perspective, from a Salesforce architecture, everything perspective, to actually help the sales team to paint a better picture around the value of an integration and the amount of times that conversation is coming up. It seems so basic, but we were missing that for so long. So that's been certainly a big focus for us this year, and is helping us to put together that business case.
That's great. Yeah, it takes a lot of discipline to get AEs to fill something out, especially after they lost a deal. They're probably not going to want to fill anything out. So I've even seen some good success with tapping into the SC organization, because those folks tend to be the ones that are riding shotgun with the AEs and are going to be a bit more in tune with knowing, limitations of the current platform, what integrations you don't have. So I've seen some success there with plugging into the SCs that tend to, I think, be a bit more studious when it comes to those details.
Mm-hmm.
Not to pick on salespeople, sorry.
This is not my idea, but we heard from, I think it was Mike Stalker when we were at the Crossbeam conference, who talked about setting triggers in Gong or any of your call recordings for your sales team when integration comes up or when specific services come up. So instead of asking them to like self-report it, you just have some data of how often it's coming up in their sales calls today.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. Yeah, Mike Stalker from Rollworks, a great guy, really, really talented, has really dialed in how to maximize, I think, things internally with partner organizations, and leveraging the recordings and having those triggers go off is really, really valuable. Just because it's just services that data, and it's more tangible to grab.
I think it's also good to have it. I think Sunir touched on this a little bit, to have it in your customer service and their CR, in the systems they're using, those same tags, right? That's something we do here whenever APIs mentioned or integrations mentioned. It's tagged and it flags us to let us know that came up as a conversation with one of our clients. So I'd recommend it there as well if you're able to do it.
Yeah, it's a great tip, Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. In my previous SaaS company, Proposify, we would use those tags. Our partner team worked closely with our sales team, and actually we used a pod-like structure, as you were mentioning before. But those tags were critical in determining when a deal was lost, why it was lost, and really narrowing in on what integrations we were missing so that we could get that internal buy-in from the rest of the company.
Yeah, that's great. I guess one area we touched on it a little bit. I know one of the things that Ryan and I and Lindsay talked about in our prep was around scaling. We've kind of touched on it a little bit today. And I think, Andrew, you mentioned, there's 50 integrations that you want to deploy. Sometimes I'll chat with folks that they want 100 integrations done, so I guess to have more of a pointed question is, how are you managing expectations internally of what's feasible and what's realistic to deploy, and how much time that's going to take, Because I mean, I think we all know getting 100 integrations out the door is not easy with the amount of tools that are out there. Yes, it'll help you, but it's still a lot of work. So how do you guys prioritize? How are you setting expectations? If the CFO just signed off on an iPaaS solution with Ryan's company and is saying, I want this done in 6 months, like, well, that's really not feasible. So how are we setting expectations internally? What is the best way that you guys have seen to do that you might want to share with the group?
I did a little masterclass on this a little while ago, but I have the same shtick I often repeat. Just you can't really prove the business model with a partnership because there's a level of other company involved that you can't measure the reliability of them. But what I found in practice is like playing roulette. You play the expected value game. So you kind of run programs against sets of partners. Please don't launch them all on the same day, they get annoyed, but do all the marketing automation ones, do all the CRMs, do all the accounting packages in a row, so that the developer engine knowledge is like focused for a little while. And then the way I prioritize programs or partners within that is you just do the expected value calculation, like how much customer demand is there. That's actually the biggest value on your side you can control. How big is their channel? What's a typical ticket? What's the cost for doing integration? And then you multiply it by the probability of success. And weirdly, the actually number one driver for partnership success is I like to call it hot to trotness, but it's partner buy-in. Because you can have the biggest partner in the world, but if you're small to them, they don't care. They're not going to do anything for you. You can have the smallest partner in the world, right? And they can be extremely enthusiastic, but they may not have customers. You can have a medium-sized company who you just happen to like you guys and will do a lot of things for you, and they'll probably drive the most. So you just have to multiply it all together. And I just use t-shirt size, small, medium, large estimates. That's the best you could do, really. You can't really put a dollar figure on it beyond that prioritization, but if you run enough in a row, which is why it's valuable to programatize it, over time your bets will pay off and you'll actually have a profitable program.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I think t-shirt sizes are a great way to set expectations, and it tends to be used quite a bit as well. Just I think inside of organizations, our devs talk about that all the time, around level of effort, t-shirt size. So I think that's a really good suggestion. And the expected value is great because it's all about forecasting and there's no guarantees, but if you can at least put that business case together with the expected value and the other points you mentioned, Sunir, you definitely have directional guidance on where to go and how to do it. Andrew, if you don't mind me picking on you, I know you mentioned, you've got a big mountain to climb. So I think you touched on it a little bit ago, but maybe if you can recap, how are you going to focus on the prioritization maybe over the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, we are leaning on the trade team to help us because we don't have the right knowledge around level of effort, whereas the trade team does. And Ellen, who's on the call, gave us some great feedback about one company that was very high on our list, and we deprioritized very quickly because Ellen was like, "Listen, good luck." No, she didn't say that. She said this is going to be tough. So I think that it's been a bit of a learning curve for us because our immediate assumption was like, these are going to be really easy. We know that they're available, bang, bang, bang. We've had to do a lot of reforecasting and reprioritizing to get to that sweet spot. And importantly, resetting of expectations internally, because 50 is a big number. What do we realistically expect by end of 2022 versus, halfway through end of 2023? So we're being very communicative with our exec team around this is what we assumed, this is what the reality is, this is what changes we've had to make, and continue to update them kind of as we go along. One of the big challenges that I foresee is the relationship with the integrated partner, whatever that word is. You mentioned that the value that Electric can provide to them may be perceived to be small. So what contribution or support can we receive from that company, which we envisage will make an impact on how quickly we can progress.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of like pushing in different angles until we find the right stick, and just being very clear around timelines as they do change.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, I completely agree. And I think For those of you that haven't gone through this process before, just to get kind of a quick overview, let's say you move forward with buying an iPaaS solution. This is my little pitch. The integrations are the easy part. Like the integrations exist. The APIs are open. We've built out the integrations. You can talk to those systems, but it's all the setup that still needs to take place between the company that bought the iPaaS solution and the third party of whoever you're integrating with. It's sandbox access, it's OAuth access. So it's those types of things that are really out of our control, the customer's control. It's really up to that third party. And some of the things that Andrew's talking about is just the challenges of working with some of those organizations. They're not the friendliest folks in the world. And to keep picking on ADP, it's like, yeah, good luck. And here's our bill for getting a sandbox, and it's $10,000. And we won't talk to you until you spend a dime with us. It's those types of things. So those relationships are hard, and they could be really important integrations. You just have to chip away at it and have good partners that'll help you do that. But there's definitely a reality to, I guess you can go, small, medium, large as well, as far as difficulty, easy, kind of difficult, and really difficult. And that's definitely part of the roadmap and the planning. I think that everyone should make sure that they're aware of when you're stepping into this world.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency to underappreciate the level, the importance of a lower effort integration. Like, we always plot it on a scale of effort and impact usually is something financial or directly revenue related, but then effort is, how hard is it going to be for you to get this in the market? I would generally prioritize something low effort that you can get to market, and you can get to market faster, that delivers value for your customers, over something that might have a bigger revenue impact, but is going to be a mountain to climb. Yeah. And you could certainly tier those appropriately, but value to customer, man, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, 100%. Looks like we have maybe about 7-8 minutes left. Want to be mindful of time. Anything we haven't talked about that you guys want to talk about? Any questions? Anything that you're curious about?
I have a question. For some of these high-level effort integrations, do you guys think it's easier to sometimes have a mutual customer maybe make a request for this integration to happen, or for the partnership team to drive, getting the sandbox and integration?
No one trusts partnership people. Everyone trusts customers. Like I said, the most important thing you can do as a partnership person is we did fucking everything. Screencasts, interviews, took people out to dinner, shoved as many customers into the other person's face, because you're dealing with people who are like you, partnership people. We drink together. We have a trade association where we drink amongst ourselves, right? Like, we're friendly with each other. It's the rest of the organization that's going to fuck us all, right? So if we want to get buy-in from the rest of the company, we need to show them that it's not us because we had a really good dinner with each other. It's because the customers are demanding it. So the more vibrant that customer feedback is, right, the more you can get the customer the buy-in of the rest of the organization. The customer success literally does not care at all about anything that you're doing on revenue side. They're more concerned about whether the customers are happy, right? But you get them on board if you show that customers need it and they're happier with the integration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So
yeah, I would second that. I think I heard in here prioritization on this call. And sometimes I won't even prioritize an integration until a customer is requesting it, right? We may not even pursue that integration until we actually have at least one customer that's looking out for it. And then on top of that, we'll kind of t-shirt size, like how big is that customer at times? And how is that customer in our sweet spot of the type of customers we want, or in those tiers? That'll help us make a decision of, okay, there's a customer, they're in one of our tiers, that the type of customers we like. Let's have a conversation or try to find this integration that'll solve this problem. Or, even sometimes the customers, what I've seen, they'll have an idea of who has the tech they're looking for that's going to solve their problem already, right? So sometimes they'll come to you with a problem and you might have to go look around for something. Or sometimes you can ask them the question, well, who are you aware of anybody that can solve this problem for you today? And they might list off 3 different companies that comes to mind for them, right? And then that way you can approach those organizations to see if they're willing to do an integration, and there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's great. I guess just to add my 2 cents to that too, I guess the customers, I think, are always going to drive the most action, and you hope that the organization is a customer first organization. Revenue tends to solve all problems, at least that's what we all say. And I always say, if you do right by the customer, everything else will work itself out, so I think if you can leverage that and harness that and really push that customer value for both parties, it's a huge advantage, and I think everyone can win. I
would agree 90% with the sentiment that you have a customer demanding it before you invest in it. And the reason I say this is because I think there are cases that should be thought through very carefully before you buy into them, where there actually does make sense to strategically invest in an integration to go to market. And I'll use an example of the company I used to work for. We were kind of an order management system for e-commerce, kind of blended into an integration platform. It was sort of a early product in a world that's now more developed. And we made the investment to move into the Shopify ecosystem when Shopify really wasn't that important of a player yet. They were still kind of an upstart. They still mostly were with really small business customers. But it was right around the time they launched their enterprise offering, and that ended up being our most important strategic partner for us. We took a little bit of a flyer on investing in that without really having much or any customer demand kicking our door down, but it was well worth it. So I think those opportunities do exist, but you should be really thoughtful about what you're doing if you're going to kind of walk off that plank.
Yeah, those are like table stake platform. I mean, no one would never know. Like in the back in the days, of course, everyone would build a Windows app. I mean, it isn't.
Right.
They're just Shopify. Of course, you could build a Shopify integration with e-commerce tool. It's not even a question. Of course, you could integrate with Salesforce. Of course, you could integrate with Zapier eventually. These are things that are just going to happen. So you should know your market. If they're just anchor apps, you're going to have to work with them. Otherwise, your product is useless. But you should have done customer research, right, before you built the product. What's going on in your target customers world. So those become like table stake integrations.
All right, Lindsay, anything else that you want to cover off on? Any questions that we didn't get to that you think we should touch on in the last couple minutes here?
I think we covered everything, Mike, unless there's anybody who has any final thoughts on anything that we've talked about. There was a lot of great conversation today, so I want to thank everybody for participating in the roundtable today, especially Mike and Ryan for leading the roundtable with us. This was really incredible conversation. As I mentioned, this is being recorded, so it will be released. And if you have any ideas for new roundtables or you'd like to participate as a leader, please contact me in Slack. Make sure that you're in our Slack community. And if you're not, just send me an email. I'll pop it in the chat, but it's lindsay@cloudsoftwareassociation.com. And we'd love to chat about it with you. Excellent.
Great. Lindsay, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Ryan, excited to see you again, buddy. Thank you for doing this. And thank you guys all for participating. This is a great conversation, and let's keep it going. Like, if there's more questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll keep talking.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Everyone.
Cheers.